In this video, I will be talking about how I came about to building a home lab. The roots of my home lab can be traced back to the last few years when I started using virtual machines or VMs in short. I found VMs were great for running multiple operating systems at the same time and to experiment with how stuff works. I like to think of my VM population as two categories. The first category is VMs that serve a specific purpose. For example, I use SIFT for host forensics, Remnex and Flare for malware analysis, GNS3 for building network topologies, Security Onion for network forensics, and Kali Linux for understanding pen testing tools. The second category is VMs that are general purpose. So I use these for anything starting from getting familiar with an operating system, understand what forensic artifacts get generated, how to do live triage, memory acquisition, or for testing logging utilities like Sysmon and AuditD. So over the years, I accumulated like 15 to 20 VMs that I've been using. And I've been running these VMs from my Windows 10 laptop with 16 gigs of RAM and 512 gigs of SSD. For running and managing these VMs, I have used a variety of what you would call type 2 hypervisors. I started with using VirtualBox and then added Vagrant to it to support some automation, and eventually moved over to VMware Workstation, mainly because I like the GUI better and setting up things like networking, shared folders seem more straightforward. Here, if you look at the screenshot of VMware Workstation, it lists the three important things that a VM must have in good measure: memory, processors, and storage. Managing these three important things for all the VMs in my laptop was proving to be challenging. I was constantly running out of disk space and had to move my VMs around or delete VMs that I didn't want to immediately use. Also, I had problems if I had to run more than 4 or 5 VMs parallelly because I had to fiddle around with the CPU and memory allocation settings for the VMs so that they run, reasonably smoothly. To work around these issues, I initially thought about upgrading to a more powerful laptop or to buy additional storage. Something like USB SSDs or a RAID station where I could just dump the VMs. While that seemed to be acceptable, I felt that a laptop should be a general purpose machine that you use for email, internet browsing, presentations, and everything else. VMs somehow did not fit in the realm of what I wanted to use my laptop for. So I set out to understand how people had actually solved this problem of running multiple VMs efficiently at home. After talking to a few people and spending time on Google searches, there is one term that caught my attention, and that was Homelab. To understand what this Homelab stuff means, I started with Google Images. So a quick look tells you that Homelab is a collection of computers, networking gears, and of course lots of cables that you can have at home. Now the computers used here seem to range from Raspberry Pis and Intel NUCs to full-blown servers. Same with network equipment, which could be anything from a 4-port hub to enterprise-grade 48-port switches. As I was looking through all this, I kind of forgot my original idea of having to run VMs. The idea of buying hardware and building stuff from scratch seemed quite intriguing. I felt that building a home lab would be quite challenging and at the same time offer me much more than the ability to run a few VMs. For example, I could learn how to buy a server, how to install a Type 1 hypervisor like ESXi or Hyper-V, learn some system administration, networking, and if things work well, I might as well have a miniature version of a corporate environment at home, with Active Directory, network segmentation, defense in depth kind of security controls and whatnot. And the best part of this setup would be that I can use this environment to simulate multiple attack defense scenarios. So following this line of thought, I became quite convinced that I must build a home lab. Anyways, back to reality. My current goal is to see if I can buy a server and somehow make it capable of running multiple VMs. And once I get through that initial challenge, I'll see how to build a full-blown corp environment. On a closing note, I wanted to mention that there is a very good Reddit community that offers support for people building a home lab. It has 2 sections. The first one is the posts where people share their home labbing experiences and ask questions. The second section is an awesome wiki which has tutorials and guides for beginners to get started easily. So if you ever plan to build a home lab, I would suggest having a read through this wiki. And for me, the next step is to get a server, which is what I'll be talking about in the next video. Thanks a lot for watching till the end, and see you in the next video.